Beautiful, beautiful Friday. And as you can see, I'm in yellow. One of those colors that just brightens your day. So it doesn't matter how and what happened all through the week. Put on some yellow and put some smile. Hey, my name is Strokes, John Rogers Strokes, and you know this is SOUQ Pulse, where we talk. I will tell you the same thing. Don't keep quiet. So call your neighbor, call your friends, your enemies too. Forgive and call them. If it's that bitter, still forgive and call them. Let's get to talk. We say nations are running. We say it's a race and everybody needs to compete. We say get productive. Now, that message I'm talking to Africa, Nigerians, every single one of you, before and after the equator. Now, we have to tone it down a bit because it's a Friday. But still, we will hit it hard because there are issues that we need to talk about, things that we take seriously. So it doesn't matter what side of the divide you are on. Like we say, winning, losing, we talk. We'll go on a very short break, and I'll get to introduce my guest. I'm very excited. He's back. And we'll also bring on board what we are talking about, and we'll get to trash it. So on your side, on my side, we'll talk. When we are done, we'll drop the papers down and say, okay, what actions do we take? Now, on SOUQ Pulse today, we are looking at a relationship that has spanned well over 50 years, and things that have come out of that relationship. So we're looking at the business angle of it. Some will be wondering, where is SOUQ taking us to? Nowhere. Something right in front of it. I'm looking at the China-Nigeria currency swap deal. Yes, you heard us very well. Now, we are asking ourselves this direct question. How has Nigeria fared in this deal? Some time ago, precisely in 2018, CBN and the People's Bank of China signed a currency swap agreement. About 2.5 billion was set aside for that particular agreement. That's at that point in time. Godwin Emefiele signed on behalf of Nigeria, and Yi Gang signed on behalf of the People's Bank of China. This was majorly to create an ease of doing business, take out the overdependence on the dollar, completely take it out in the first place, so that we on our own side can do business. China had it their own side domiciled in their CBN. Same thing on this side. So business people could just go up both ways and get business going. 2018, this is 2024. And as it is right now, you know better than I do that on daily basis, you wake up after praying. For those that pray, you study the holy books. For those that study the holy books, the next thing you check is what is dollar saying. So what if we have really followed up on this particular deal, swap deal? Do you think we'll be exactly where we are right? That's what we're talking about. And there is no better person to shed light on this than our very own erudite. I'll call him a professor. A man that has not just studied, but is going all around the world, teaching out knowledge and teaching people. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, please join me as I welcome back to SOUQ Pulse, Dr. Idahosa. So you're welcome back.
My pleasure to be here with you this afternoon, Chuks.
Thank you very much. Those that are wondering, he stepped into Lagos today, and I said, sorry, you have to be on SOUQ Pulse. Welcome back, sir.
When you were talking yellow, I thought it was a slice of orange. So I was itching to lick some orange.
You're welcome. Let's dive straight into this. What happened to these deals?
Well, I think it's quite very, very disturbing, really, especially when you have to engage with policymakers around us when they are thinking policy. That one of the things that really they don't do is thinking through the entire process, the whole gamut of what you're about to do. I was sharing with some of our delegates in you just yesterday when somebody said to me, oh, we have very cerebral people in public service who know all the things that they're doing. And I said, yes, I don't have a problem with having people who are cerebral within the public service. The problem I do have is that many of the people who are within public service do not think through problems before articulating solutions. And that's the fundamental weakness of our public bureaucracy. So when we got into the trade deal or this swap deal with China, what were we having in mind? Was the fact that Nigeria trade more or do more business with China, and therefore we need more dollar to do business in China. And therefore, if there's a swap, that's happening between China and Nigeria, it will drag down the pressure of exchange of dollar, which people who take to do business in China will get. But the question to ask was the fact, look at it, you are thinking about what business are we really doing with China that would have necessitated the swap?
At that point,
are we shipping anything from Nigeria to China?
Okay, good. Now we are going to get to that particular place.
So that is a fundamental, because what I'm saying is that the entire process was not thought through. So we jump into it.
The process was not thought through on our side or on
our side.
Okay, good.
On our side. You see, it's workable for China. Now we have to also look at it. The hedging of currencies and funds is done when you have a currency that's stable. Both Nigerian currency and the yuan are not stable currency. They are fluctuating currency.
But one fluctuates based on what the government wants at a point in time.
You see,
and they can control it.
This is what I'm saying.
One doesn't.
Now, the Chinese devaluation of their currency is a deliberate government policy. And the reason is because they want more access into the market.
Be specific.
Yeah.
The international market.
Yes, of course, it's international market. Of course, if it's their market, they don't need to devalue their currency, because you devalue currency if you have something that you want to sell to the outside.
Okay. Now before we go this far, what happened to that deal? As of 2024,
the deal was signed an initial period of 3 years, which was supposed to have elapsed in 2021, and of course, CBN renewed it. But what you have here today is the fact that, you see, 15 billion yuan was put in here, and we have drawn down on it. And then, of course, we are owing China some money. And then, of course, the one we are put on the other side. You see, because there is no balance of trade that's happening between the two nations.
When we are looking at balance of trade, now the question again we need to ask is this. Who exactly were those that were drawing from that money? Who were those that were putting down money and drawing on that money? Was it really business people?
Yeah, they could be business people, really.
They could be.
They could be business people. I'm not privy to that, because I don't work in CBN, so I wouldn't know exactly who drew down the money. But you see, what that means really is that when you made that thing public, and you see all Nigerian people go right there into the bank to go and draw down on the deposits, to say, because we can go to China.
Okay.
So we did, and then we can make business out of it. Now, the money is just small. And if you compare to that, which is the volume of trade that is coming from China, and what the deposit was at 2015, even before the renewal of the agreement in 2021, you will see that we cannot fund it. Because it's not just about the initial deposit.
Nigeria cannot
fund it, because you have to be doing trade which brings yuan into your environment.
And at that point in time, till date, we're nowhere near it.
Yeah, because all we do is one-way traffic. If it is two-way traffic, then you can now begin to look at it and see what's going into China, what volume is coming in, and that also will determine how you get access to this money. So eventually, you find that if there is so much demand, it also puts pressure on the yuan, and then you are looking for the yuan. Are you asking the People's Republic of China to print yuan for you? It won't happen. So this is the issue.
Okay, now let's backtrack a bit. Let's assume, but let's say Nigeria at a point in time between 2018 down to 2023 decided and say, okay, let's get our ass together and get a little more productive. Could this in any way have been beneficial to us?
You see, it will have been, and that's why I'm talking about trade deals. I was sharing with them at the workshop. Take, for example, Dangote came on air on Monday and said, Nigeria could not fulfill her part of the deal in terms of their contribution to the equity in his refinery.
That's NNPCL.
NNPCL. So, and therefore, what is NNPCL? Is Nigeria. So what therefore you are talking about is that
Nigeria said is a company.
We understand it's a company of its own. Okay. Instead of 20%, that now the stake of Nigeria is 7.5%. Now I was asking,
Who now owns the 12.5%?
This is it. I said because we couldn't make up.
Okay.
And so he has been able to defray that. But the question I was asking the public officers, I said, who went into that agreement with Dangote? And I gave them a very simple example. In the UAE, for example, if you want to develop real estate in UAE, the government give you land to build. And that land they have given to you alone constitute 24%
Stake
of their stake in that business.
Good.
Now, all the waiver that were given to Dangote for that refinery, all the exchange rates that was given to him, it's not seen as Nigerian contribution.
Well, it depends at that particular point in time who signed those deals.
Yeah,
the person that signed those deals did not sign on behalf of Nigeria. They didn't have Nigeria.
You see, this is always the issue. And that's what I'm saying, that many of those in the bureaucracy don't think things through because they get into agreement.
But they could also have been paid, so they've taken their share of the cake.
Well, I don't think most of the time is just a payment. It's just that somebody need to sit down and look at the implication of whatever contract we are entering into, so that we can actually determine. So if in the UAE you want to do investment and you put money down, so you want to build a big building, like the tallest building there, UAE has 24% of the stake. It's not because they contributed 1 naira.
Okay, because of the...
It's because that the land where that thing is built is their own, and they call it as part of their stake in that business.
And
so,
maybe they might also contribute in several waivers.
Yeah, that is what it is. Like Lee Kuan Yew says, government is a business in a larger scale. And until people who drive the process here understand this principle, some of all these things will not work. This is the issue. If you have a vision, it's okay, this is where we are going to. Now, it should crystallize into a mission. It should crystallize into objectives or goals. And then, of course, there should be workable strategies to say, this is how we are going to deliver on each of these core objectives that we have set aside for ourselves.
Okay, now let's bring it back to this same swap deal. We have seen over time that the past administration, CBN administration, led by Emefiele, that signed this deal. There's a whole lot of questions to answer. Now, let's look at the business community themselves. Now, a lot of machinery is coming in from China. We might not be exporting the end product of what those machineries produce back to China, but we're exporting to several other countries, several other African countries. Could this swap deal have benefited some of these small and medium companies that need this machinery from China, but also export their end product to other countries, not China?
Yeah, but you see, this is the challenge that we have. And that's the point I'm making. So whether you are going to swap a currency with, for example, a Chinese business. Let's take this instance. I want to go and buy something in China. Maybe I even need to travel. So I need money. Who is the owner of the aircraft that is running Chinese routes?
Air Peace will run Chinese routes.
Okay, let's Air Peace run. Will Air Peace take yuan?
Naira.
Of course, it will be valued at dollar.
Air Peace is taking naira.
If it's Ethiopia Airlines, for example, you are going to follow.
You pay dollars.
You have to pay in dollars. If it is Qatar Airways, you are going to do. You have to pay in dollars. If it is Egypt Airlines, you are going to do. You pay in dollars.
But is it possible? Is it possible where we can get into this kind of swap deals and we use less of dollars? Is it something? Is it doable?
You see, as of today, dollars still remain the internationally acceptable hedging currency.
I agree with you. Because nations use it. Yeah, because it makes trade easy.
It's not just trade, because it's stability.
Yes. What if we decide to trade in gold? What if we decide to trade in oil? What if we decide to trade in solid minerals? What if we decide to trade in Bitcoin?
Yeah, but this is what we are going to look at. Take, for example, India has gone the gold route. Uganda is taking the gold route. But where's really the value of the gold? Yes, the price of gold is getting higher in the international market. You see, I was talking to people again yesterday about these petroleum issues, and I said to them, take for example, we are crazy about CNG. Technology we don't have.
We did not develop.
We don't have. So we are relying on somebody's CNG. Now, the thing that is on your ground, we have abandoned it. And I said to them, look at what Saudi Arabia is doing. Saudi Arabia is making new investment in fossil fuel. In short, they had a headline about on Monday or say, and they said the fossil fuel cannot go to an end. It will not end. Because they are defending what they have. And this is the way to do business.
What is putting food on the table?
On the table,
Let's make it as basic as possible.
Oh, yes. So always we are thinking of shipping job overseas as a country. And that is what really baffles me. So even with this currency swap, you know, think about the first thing that Nigeria should be thinking about is how can we work on our balance of trade with nations?
Okay, if we go the route of balance of trade, except if we are working on balance of trade with African nations, as we are right now, we can't be thinking of balance of trade with nations like China.
Why?
What are we producing to balance the trade? You always say, let's face some good reality. What is our production capacity to balance the trade with China? We are not like the US, where you can start looking at trade deficit. No, we don't even have it in the first place because 90% of trade between us and them comes from them.
The reason
we are not productive.
The reason, yes, is because we are not productive. I agree with you completely. Is the fact that we are having markets. There's so much Ghana can take from us.
Ghana, I agree.
There's so much they can take from us.
I 100% agree.
We sit down and calculate. You see, if you look at the real trade between Nigeria and China, or that volume of trade, you will discover that it's actually the Chinese companies in Nigeria. It's trading with itself.
Okay, let me say it is more than 90% one-sided.
So this is what it is. So as anything like a volume of trade, you see the Chinese companies in Nigeria, they are the one trading with their whole country. So how are
Chinese construction companies,
Chinese production company, manufacturing companies, they are everywhere here. And they are also taking things away from here and they are sending it back. So the trade is not balanced and it's not in favor of our country. And this is where we need to sit down and ask ourselves some basic questions, which of course is one of the things that I have been shouting in this studio. Yesterday, I was so happy when I was following the convention that was going on in the Republican convention. And one of the core issues that was being hammered over and over again for every young people that spoke in those conventions was the fact that our parents did not teach us the value of handouts. They taught us how to dirty our hands and get something done. And I think this is what we should tell ourselves as a country. How do we put our hands to the work that we are not just depending on government handouts?
But okay, how can we get there when in the last 60 years, that is what we've depended on?
Yeah, it's to create a new narrative. And I think that's why SOUQ is here. So how do we create a new narrative? That there are opportunities within the economic space in Nigeria. And there's so much value that we can add. And so much money we can make if we decide to do things well.
Okay, now if we decide to do things well, let's still come back to what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Now we have a whole lot of markets within West Africa, within Nigeria, and within Africa. Now for every of these markets, the markets where things are sold, clothes, shoes, normal everyday utensils that we use, a lot of them are made in China. Now even for Nigerian business people that manufacture, be it some electronics, Nigerian brands, they still go over to China to get a model, manufacture, and bring back this way. Same thing with cosmetics. They get their research, do everything, still go to China, mass produce, and bring back this way. Can we look at this swap deal in any way and see if it can reduce that dependence on the dollar? Because everyone still looks for the dollar to go to China.
Yeah, but you see, that is the point I'm making, really. The issue here is really because that dollar, China, Nigeria is just a one-way trade relationship. And that one-way trade relationship, there are a lot of intervening variables that will still make even people going to China to look for dollar. I just gave you one, is the airline issue. Because there's no direct flight from, say, whether Chinese airplane coming here or Nigerian having an airline that land directly in China. So, of course, you have to transit. Now, this transit you do also require you to also look for some form of dollar to do the international trade and conversion. Now, but you also look at the volume of what we do what we do with Turkey, what we do with Japan, what we do with almost all the countries in the world, that is not just China alone that's actually putting the pressure on the dollar. So what is the fundamental issue here? The fundamental issue, which is the real problem with the dollar, is not the swapping that is the problem. The problem is we are not productive enough, and we don't have anything to sell to the outside world so that we can earn more dollars. So once there is trade that is going on between us, that of course we can even close the gap in the deficit, that what we are taking from outside and what we are giving to the outside, that the gap is not too wide, that we can close the gap this way, then the pressure on dollar will not be there. So rather than treat symptoms, we should be looking at the fundamental issues. That, okay, some of all these things that we're actually going there to go and do, can we also, rather than get into swap agreement and get the Chinese company to actually come down here and set up same mobile factories that can produce those things here in Nigeria?
Rather than the swap deal.
Rather than the swap deal. So we're looking at a problem, and so we're not just treating symptoms.
We treat the main issue.
We have to look at the root cause.
Okay, now
So the problem is that most time we don't do a root cause analysis of our problems. We just look at symptom, and then we wake up every morning and all we are thinking about is how to kill the symptom. But how do you deal with symptom when, of course, the root is still there, you have not dealt with the root, the symptom will come back again.
Okay, before the symptom comes back, now let's look at, it's been 1971 Nigeria-China relationship. And that has grown phenomenally over the years. I think Nigeria should be one of the greatest trade partners with China in Africa. And Nigeria is a destination of choice for them. Most companies that deal with China and import things from China, just like you rightly said, happen to be Chinese companies right here in Nigeria. A lot of the products being made in Nigeria, there is a form of Chinese involvement in one way or the other. Now, is it possible for us to take this relationship beyond this?
We can. And I think that is where, for me, those who manage our economy need to be really more proactive. You know, I was listening to Donald Trump last night, and he was talking about the Chinese, and he said, look, if they will not, we will slam a 200% tariff on their cars so that they will not be sellable in American environment. You see, this is negotiation. And that's what leaders do. You negotiate and strike deals that is for the interest of the people that you govern. You see, but why we are in a hurry to solve problems, we do this fire brigade approach. You know, I gave them a puzzle yesterday while we were looking at it, and I said, look, if, for example, you have such as amount of money to spend, and I want you to divide it in 4 quadrants to say, where will I put this money? Urgent, important. Not urgent, important. Not important, urgent. Not urgent, not important. Now, you go and check it. I have over 100 people, 70 people in that place. Everybody is putting the money in quadrant 1. Because everything for us is urgent. So it's a fire brigade approach to life that's our problem. And if you have read The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, you know that resource management is well managed at quadrant 2, where nothing is urgent, but everything is important, which suggests that you plan, which suggests that you have a vision, you suggest that you have thought things through before embarking on them. So we get into a program that has not been thought through, and then we are learning through the rope, as if the world will be waiting for us. So I think this is a problem, that those who are in public space must first and foremost think things through and see its workability. Look at the feasibility. Can this deliver the right value? What exactly do we want from this project before getting into it? Now, you see, what we do most of the time is we get into the project first, then we start to think later. And this is why we are spending so much money in trial and error that has brought us to our knees.
Now, for China, a whole lot of policy formation is announced. They gather either at their biannual meeting or the one done in local government or in state government. And sometimes the premier comes to make that announcement. Or the central bank governor is present when a lot of all those are made, which means someone is going to be held accountable and responsible should something go wrong in that policy formation. Why don't we have that kind of issue here?
Yeah, I also think that one of the issues that we were talking about very hugely yesterday was the issue of the also personal greed of those who also represent us sometime in doing some of all these transactions. You see, when you see a nation who is making progress, they ask themselves some very basic questions. And it is in finding answers to those questions that you actually develop your policies. But here is always a copy and paste. So nobody is responsible. You know, yesterday we were having this conversation and somebody said to me, I said, you see, government, and I was asking, who is really government? He said our leaders. And I asked them, who prepares the budget of the National Assembly?
Government.
And they told me a civil servant. Okay.
No, let's just help it. Government.
Now, who prepare the budget of these politicians? They say is the civil servant. So now, you are the one preparing the budget. So everything we see in the budget is you. Because you are colluding. And this collusion really is a bigger problem. Because nobody gets really held responsible. There's no consequences for failure. If you do a deal that is beyond 10,000 yuan and you are caught to have stolen something that's above that, you know what you are going to face in China. Capital punishment is real. If a project fails in your hands, somebody must pay for it. But here we live in an environment where we cannot even evaluate. Just imagine, that contract was entered into in 2018. And he has to take the 10th assembly, which came on board last year, to evaluate 2019 spending, 2020 spending. As of today, as we're speaking, they are just evaluating 2021 spending. So how do you really look at what has gone wrong so that you can now begin to think how to make amendments? Because it's when these things are audited that it becomes the concern of everybody. You know, somebody was saying to us that even that Emefiele's period, that for 3 straight years they didn't give a statement of account to the office of the general so that they can audit what is going on in CPN. So these are some of the ruts that were in the system. How can you have an agency that you don't audit? So that they even know, well, okay, some of these things that we're doing, are they in line with the regulations or the policies that were put in place? Audit should be the one to pull that out. But you see, our audit is post-mortem. So you have done something in 2021, you can imagine it's 2024, we are still reviewing what we did in 2021. So some of all these things that you hear in the National Assembly and they say they are inviting people to come and testify, they are not things that are just happening. They are things that happen in 2021.
Okay. Now this is a sad one. But now let's look at it. We say Africa needs to grow. We say Nigeria needs to grow. We say we need to get productive and also count. Most times people say let's compete. I differ. Let's produce for ourselves first. Yeah. Let's clothe and feed ourselves first. Then we can now get beautiful and handsome from the house and now go outside. And now put something in the market for others to buy. But now let's look at the small and medium companies. Before now start talking about the micro that take care of daily food. How can we start looking at avenues where the businesses we're doing with China, with these small companies, small businesses, we might call them small. The guy in Alaba or the guy behind us here in Balogun that goes to buy fabric from China, the guy that goes to buy finishes for his shoes in Aba, same from China. What policies can government start looking at that will favor them? Not just them going to China and just dropping all their money every single time. Just like you said, they fly dollars every single time. Even if they are not flying, they have to use logistics, Chinese logistics, every single time. We are doing business with you. Yes, we are importing from yes, but how and what policies can we put in place to help these small businesses?
Yeah, but I think, again, culturally speaking, it's like we are traders by nature. And as traders by nature, what means is that you don't really need to produce anything. You can buy and sell. Yes, we also have such a model that is working in the United Arab Emirates. UAE is a trading country, for example. But they don't have these issues about dollar issues. Because while they are trading nations, they have done it in such a way that they become a hub
for the trading,
for the entire wheel around them. Because if you look at it,
not just them.
Not just them. No. That's what I'm saying. UAE is in the center of almost 5 to 6 billion people. What that means is that from UAE to India is about 3-4 hours, to Africa, to Middle East. You see, so to Europe. So you find that the equidistance is small.
What they are both by air,
by sea, and by sea. So what they've done here is that they ensure that everything that is coming into UAE come at a fixed custom duty. Take, for example, cars.
Okay.
Any car you import, whether it's Tokumbo, whether it's brand new one, whatever it is, whatever model it is, land in the UAE, and the custom duty is 5%.
5% of the worth of
the worth of your car. Okay. So it's straightforward. So once you pay the 5% as the worth of your car,
you're welcome.
You're welcome. So the car enter in here. Now, by the time you go and check the clearing costs and all those other things in these other countries, you find that the neighboring countries still find the same car cheaper to buy in UAE than even importing into their country, which is the kind of strategy that the Benin Republic has done with us for a very long time. So when you are trying to see, you are monitoring your border, what they do, once you make a policy, they will have to reverse that policy in Benin Republic so that, of course, the more this good land there, the cheaper it becomes. Then, of course,
to bring it in here.
You can sneak them into your country through illegal routes and still make money. And so, you see, Benin Republic has been feeding on that for a very long time. So when Nigeria make policy, they make a policy that is adverse to Nigeria so that they can receive, and then it gets into Nigeria still cheaper than what we collect in our ports. So what should government be thinking about? Government should think, how do we create a competitive environment such that whatever thing we are importing that comes into Nigeria, Nigeria become a hub in West Africa. So Cote d'Ivoire does not need to necessarily go to China. They don't need to necessarily go to Japan. So they come to Nigeria to buy. And when they are buying with us, they are trading with us with dollars, since ECOWAS currency is not available at the moment. So these are the things that we must be thinking about and see, how do we streamline business operations, create that ecosystem where businesses can be flowing into our country, and then Nigeria become a hub to Africa.
Now, the next question is, who will do this?
It has to be us.
How will we do this?
You see, this is the point that is, we must agree to understand that, look, yeah, this is our problem. And that's what I'm saying. Agencies of government must see them. One of the things that I've been advocating to government parasitize the fact that there's no synergy between agencies. Every of government agencies and departments today, as we speak, have become a revenue center. So everybody is in a struggle to tell government that I am making money.
Making money off people you should not be making.
So what that means is that the more money you are making for government, the more you are increasing the cost of business. So why they are talking about the ease of doing business, it's not just the ease of doing business in terms of saying you can register CAC today, you get certificate. It's far more than that. It's the cost that is getting into your operations, which all the multiplicity of agencies are collecting. You have SON one end, you have NAFDAC one end, you have custom one end, you have immigration one end. All these things factor some of all these things into government. And then government come take corporate tax from you. It come back from the other side and say, oh, pay 3% education tax. They are saying pay 1%. You see, all these tax come back to the businesses. So what that does is increases costs. So you cannot become competitive. So what government need to do is to see how to remove all this bottleneck that is hiking the price, that within the sub-region, you have the lowest price. And then neighbors can come to do business in your market. And then you can get value for what you're doing.
Neighbors come do business in your market, then you get value for what you're doing. Now let's take this last bit before we get chased out of this studio. China does something that I won't use the word that's coming to my mind, but they have a way of pushing information across the country very fast and far-reaching. For every policy, it travels the entire length of the country, and both businesses that are going to profit from it or that should take note are aware. Yeah. Why do we have that issue here in Nigeria?
Yeah, but of course you look at it. That's what I'm saying to you. Most of the things we talk about here, they are psychological issues. You see, for example, when policies are made to be punitive, then
it travels far.
You cannot get those policies to travel. Because most of the policies and regulations of government in Nigeria are punitive. They are not corrective. And that's why when you see law enforcement officers, they hide in a corner and wait to see you commit a crime.
For which country are you talking about?
I'm talking about Nigeria.
Which part of Nigeria?
Everywhere, whether it's in Lagos, whether it's in Benin City, wherever you find yourself, you find these law enforcement agencies. They hide in a corner to wait for you to commit a crime so that they can punish you.
Whereas they should be educating
people. So that's the problem. So when there are policies, they don't even make anybody know because they want you to fall victim so that you can be fined. But this one is different from China. So when these public policies are made, efforts are made such that the people are well informed of the essence of the policy, what benefit everybody stands to get from such a policy. And that also is in the UAE. You just go to the UAE. Anybody on the street can tell you the rules and regulations that govern the city. So infractions are less because government spend hugely on public education. But here you even have laws and regulations that even those within the core ministries of government don't even know they exist. And the real reason is because that mentality of punitive policies is what is driving us as a people. And so once we don't understand these dynamics or fundamentals in our operations, we may not be able to explain some of the things that you say play out. So when you make policy, and this policy is to have impact on people, the people must be aware. And then, of course, you must commit to communicating these principles or policies to the stakeholders who are going to be either beneficiary or receivers of this service or regulations.
Thank you very much, Dr. Idahosa. It's always a delight having you on SOUQ Pulse.
My pleasure always.
Welcome back. Now, for everyone out there, we will say this. We will get productive. We will have no reason to be lazy. We will have no reason tomorrow to say, we said this yesterday. No, because we will stand and be counted. So for every policy that will come after today, as long as it affects small business, medium business, micro business, the big ones can take care of themselves. As long as it affects these three, it is our responsibility to make sure that it's not just about punishment or policies that will go against those businesses, but policies that will make these businesses grow. They are the highest employer of labor. They are the ones that put food majorly on the table. It doesn't matter the sector. Every part of it. No, now, for deals that have to do with currency swap or financial ability to access finance or knowledge or training or open markets, open borders for markets, be it that of AFTA, be it that of AGOA, that we are not even sure that we've been using that much. It is our responsibility to communicate this far and communicate well. And let the people understand where and how it affects them and how they can access it. It is our responsibility. It's also yours. We here in SOUQ Pulse will tell you this. We are all about positive programming. So it doesn't matter what's happening out there. We'll tell you, look inwards. There is always a solution. We might be crawling today, but we'll keep crawling, knowing fully well that we will walk someday. And that can only happen when you and I take those steps. Thank you very much for being part of SOUQ Pulse. We'll do this again on Monday. But before then, remember, be your neighbor's keeper and love yourself. If you don't, then you can love someone else. My name is Chooks, John Rogers Chooks. Have yourself a beautiful weekend.